Hey guys, welcome back to another What's for Dinner video. We are going to get straight into the recipes. I am first up making some chicken fried rice, and I had about 2 tablespoons of sesame oil and 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan, and I'm cooking up some chopped up carrots. Now the recipe calls for frozen carrots, and I'm going to do peas on the side because I don't care for them, and I just use fresh carrots, and I'm just cooking them to make sure they're cooked. So I am altering the original recipe a little bit in how I do this, but I will have it linked below for you. Once the carrots were done, I put in some garlic and let that cook for, 30 seconds or a minute, and then I added in a tablespoon of butter, and now we're adding in 3 eggs that have been beaten, and we're going to make our scrambled eggs. I love to have lots of scrambled eggs in my fried rice. I don't want to have to search too hard for those bits. I want them in there and easily to be found. Now that the eggs are finished cooking, I've got about 3/4 to a pound of cooked diced chicken and then some cooked brown rice that I cooked earlier in the day. I'm obviously not measuring exactly, but like I said, the recipe will be linked below. And then I'm adding in some coconut aminos, which are a soy sauce substitute. I do my best to avoid soy, so I like coconut aminos a lot. I really like the flavor of them. And we're just going to give that a toss, trying to heat everything through. The rice was pulled from the fridge, so just getting everything nice and hot and combined. And I decided to add in a little bit of ginger. I don't think that was in the original recipe. And then a little bit of salt. And I'll end up adding a little bit more rice and a little bit more coconut aminos until I get it where I want it to be. I made a couple of the recipes from today's video prior to going on vacation, so it was quite a while ago, and then some were from this past week, but I just kind of saved them up until I had enough for a video, so I hope that you enjoy these recipes, every single one of them. In my opinion, was really good, or I wouldn't be sharing it with you. And I just cooked up some peas on the side for my husband, and here is our chicken fried rice. Not, a lot of color, but it's really good. And I guess you could add some sliced green onions if you wanted. But my husband's looks more colorful. There's mine, and my husband added on the peas and water chestnuts, sometimes, and cashews. Sometimes I add on water chestnuts, and sometimes I don't. Okay, that one was super good. We're going to move on to the next recipe. I don't actually think I have a recipe for this, but I have some boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which, to be perfectly honest, I always struggle with how to prepare these because my husband is not a huge fan of the dark meat, and I'm realizing that I'm not either. I don't mind it as much as he does, but anyways, I had them in the freezer, so I was like, how do you want them? And he said, baked barbecue. I was like, all right, easy enough. So I have them on a lined sheet here that I've sprayed, and I am just seasoning both sides with salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. Feel free to use black pepper if you like it. I don't care for black pepper, so you never see me cook it with it. And then I'm using this barbecue sauce from Aldi. I absolutely love this stuff, but you can use anything you want, and drizzling that on top with some barbecue sauce. And then we're going to set that to the side because we're going to cook everything at the same time. I'm just chopping up some little potatoes. I guess you could possibly do this on the same baking sheet if you had enough room, but I've just got a baking sheet here lined with parchment paper and chopping up a bunch of potatoes. And we're going to take a super easy route here, and I'm going to just use some frozen broccoli, and I'm just going to dump that on there. And now I'm drizzling everything, or all of the veggies, I guess, with some avocado oil, giving that a toss, and then we're going to season with the same thing I seasoned the chicken with, minus the barbecue sauce. We're going to season it with some salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. If you're new here, I hope that you consider subscribing before you leave. I love to share recipe videos with you. I also do some day in the life vlog style stuff here on this channel, some decorating, usually just around the different major season changes and holidays. But a little bit of everything in the lifestyle world. Sometimes I do some grocery hauls and stuff like that. So I hope that you consider sticking around. I popped both the chicken and the veggies in the oven at 425, and we set them to cook for 20 minutes. And then when they came out, here it is. I think I took the potatoes and broccoli out halfway through to give them a toss. If I remember correctly, I think I already said, this recipe was made a couple weeks ago before we went on vacation. But everything came out really good, and then I had some corn and green beans and some rice left over from another meal. And so we're cleaning up the fridge with this dinner as well. Alright, so this next dinner was, I think, our first dinner after we came back from vacation. And I hadn't gone to the store yet, but I had everything on hand to make a complete meal, which is always a good feeling to feel like you don't have to rush out to the store immediately. Anyways, I am cooking up 1 pound of ground beef. I did put some oil in my pan, but that's because my ground beef is extremely lean. We are making some homemade hamburger helper. So we are going to begin browning up 1 pound of ground beef, and then once it's gotten started for a couple of minutes, we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of mustard, 1 teaspoon each of onion powder and garlic powder. And then I'm also going to add in some Italian seasoning that's not in the recipe. I just decided to. And then about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then we're going to continue to cook our ground beef until it is fully cooked and there is no longer any pink. Once that is good, if you need to drain it, you can. I did not need to do that. We are going to add in our liquid. The recipe calls for 2 cups of 1% milk. I have almond milk, so that's what I used. And then also 1 cup of chicken or beef stock. I am using some chicken broth or chicken stock. I don't know which one it was, but whatever. And we are going to stir that up and then put the lid on and bring this up to a simmer, to a boil rather. And then we are going to add in our pasta. The recipe calls for 2 cups of whole grain elbow macaroni. I'm using this Shell's pasta. If on the occasion we do use pasta, I like to use Priano from Aldi. It is my preferred pasta, but do what you want there. And then we are going to let that simmer, so we're going to reduce the temperature a little bit for about 10 minutes or until pasta is tender, so depending on your pasta. Once your pasta is cooked, you want to remove that from the heat, and I just moved some green beans up there to boil there, so that's what I was doing there. And now you're going to add in 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and then the recipe also calls for a 1/3 cup of grated Parmesan, and I don't remember if I actually added that. I think I did. But we're going to stir that cheese in until it is nice and melted. Mine was a little bit liquidy. I'm not sure why. It was totally fine. But I did put it in a bowl, and I just served the green beans on the side like that. But that was it. Quick and easy dinner and super delicious. And the leftovers were not nearly as liquidy. So anyways, that was what was for dinner that night. Alright guys, so this is what is for dinner tonight. Today is my errand day and I like to do something easy. I was going to pick up a rotisserie chicken, but my husband sent me a text and asked if I wanted wings, and I said yes. Buffalo Wild Wings has their bone-in wings, buy one get one free on Tuesdays. So that is what we have here, and we have enough here for also like leftovers. My husband will probably take it for lunch tomorrow. But we have some garlic Parmesan wings, some salt and vinegar dry rub wings. My oven is ready. Some Asian zing and some mild. I'm about to heat them up in the oven. Grocery day, it's all still out except for the cold stuff. We're gonna heat them up because my husband got home a little bit ago. But this is what is for dinner tonight. All right, so for this dinner, we are making a slow cooker chicken and rice soup. I needed something that could be in the crock pot because we had plans this evening. And so originally my plan was to have leftovers because we were going to be out around dinner time and I needed to eat something quick when we came home. But when we had wings the night before, I needed to find something else. So I found this recipe and decided to give it a try, and it was good. I am cutting the recipe almost in half. We did have leftovers, but I didn't want to have leftovers for like the entire week. So just depending on the size of your family. Anyways, I am chopping up 3 carrots and then 1 really small onion. And you would normally, actually I think I'm doing the whole onion, it's just a really small one. Also celery was something you would put in, but Aldi was out of it when I went to pick it up on my grocery day the day before, so I just omitted that. And I have 1.5 chicken breasts, or large chicken breasts, so I only did 1.5 in the crock pot. Put in the carrots and onions, put in some minced garlic along with some salt, parsley, thyme, and rosemary, and a bay leaf, and about 1 tablespoon of butter. And then altogether I wanted about 4 cups of chicken broth, so I had that first chunk was from the freezer, and then I had some in this carton left over from the day before. So I knew the chicken broth would just thaw. But I did about four cups, yeah. And then I just put that on low for 3 to 4 hours. Now the recipe suggested, what was it? A certain kind of rice, parboiled rice. I just wanted to use brown rice, so the recipe suggested making that separate. So I made that earlier in the day so that when we came home, all I had to do was pull it out of the fridge. So this is hours later, and all of this will be in the recipe. It gives the instructions to do it this way, and I'll have that recipe linked down below for you. So when we got home from our evening out, I pulled out the bay leaf, and then I'm shredding up the chicken. I tried to just do it in the crock pot, but it was just too tough. So I pulled it out. We're shredding it up, and we're going to put that back in the crock pot. Slow cooker, technically it's a slow cooker because crock pot I think is a brand, but whatever. Anyways, this recipe was so delicious. So I shredded up the chicken, and then I also thought that corn would be nice. So I added in the rice from the fridge that I'd made earlier in the day, and then I also added in a can of drained corn. I just like added veggies, and I also like the texture that corn gives. It just kind of switches things up a little bit. And then I just gave that a good stir and let that sit in the crock pot for another, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes just to heat the rice up. The corn was going to be fine, but this was really good, and I'm very glad to have found another slow cooker soup recipe, because in my book, that is always a win. So for this next recipe, we are going to make some healthier chicken Alfredo with spaghetti squash. So I have my spaghetti squash cut in half, seeds scooped out, face down on a lined greased baking sheet. And then I have the other chicken breast and a half from the other night's dinner package of chicken that I pulled out to make the soup. And I'm just seasoning both sides with some salt, onion powder, and garlic powder. And we're going to put all of this in the oven together to bake. You just need cooked chicken. You don't have to do it this way, but I just figured it would be a little bit easier. So that is what I did. And we're going to put that in the oven at 400 degrees for, I think the recipe said 40 minutes. I did pull the spaghetti squash a little bit before that because the size of my spaghetti squash did not take up, did not take that long to cook. So now in a large pot, I have 2 tablespoons of butter and some garlic, which is not in the recipe. I just made sense to add garlic, so I did. And then I added in 3/4 cup of almond milk, and then you're going to add a teaspoon each of parsley, basil, and oregano. And we're going to just stir that to combine, and we're going to kind of warm that up a little bit, and then we're going to add in 2 cups of shredded cheese. Now the original recipe, once again, is going to be linked below. I am switching this up a little bit. I've made this before, and I've made it before on my channel. You can make everything right in the spaghetti squash. Well, not make it all, but you prepare it and serve it in the spaghetti squash. But I decided to do it differently. So I just added in some steamed broccoli and some diced chicken. You can use fresh broccoli and follow the way of the recipe, but I just did it that way, so everything but the spaghetti squash was in one pot. And I'm just showing you kind of how I fluff up the spaghetti squash. Just use a fork to pull it away. If the spaghetti squash is done early before everything else, just leave them face down. They will retain their heat. Now you can do this all right in that shell, but I just served it in a bowl and put the spaghetti squash with all of the goodness on top, and then topped with Parmesan cheese, and we absolutely love this recipe. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope you don't mind that I skipped my formal intro and outro this time, but all recipes will be linked below, and please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. That helps me out so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!